Ahoy everyone, Tightrope here, and in this video we're taking a look at the new maps and skins that arrived in the 2.1 patch for Company of Heroes 3. Having a look at the new 1v1 map called Tuscan Vineyards. Starting out with the resources, on this side you can see we've got 2 low fuel and 1 medium. That's on each side of the map, so a total of 40 fuel on the map. And then for munitions we've got 2 medium munis, 1 high and 1 low in the corner. So a total of 82 munitions, which means overall this map is kind of on the low side for resources. But to kind of counteract that, there are actually only 2 strategic points available for cutoff. So I imagine cutoff play isn't going to be that prevalent on this map due to that fact. So maybe the fact that it's a lower resource map overall combined with maybe a lower amount of cutoffs will kind of even out. But yeah, I think no other map has this low amount of strategic points. Maybe it's like tied for the lowest. Apart from this, you can see that the VPs are both pushed right into the corner. So setting up a triple cap on this map, I imagine it's going to be very difficult due to that fact, because there's just so much distance to travel if you have to rotate from one VP to the other. Look at the map's overall size. At first glance, you see the edge of your base to the edge of their base, and it doesn't seem that big. Maybe it seems like Faymanville-esque size, but then you see how far back your base is, and it does kind of stretch out the map a bit more. Have a look around the map. There aren't many buildings in like impactful places. Most of the buildings, have like blind sides, so kind of make them not very useful. This one's kind of nestled away in the corner. Like, how much fighting do you think is going to happen in this corner to make this building over here relevant? Probably just about never. So not much garrison action on this particular map. This one's probably the most impactful. Like maybe the top player getting down here onto this building would be quite annoying for this player pushing out this side. But there's a blind side on this side, so maybe you come out this side and then come down from this angle to avoid getting shot at. So overall, not very much garrison play. And you'll see as I move around the map, there's just a crazy amount of cover. Loads and loads of light cover just everywhere on the map. And I will say this will make camouflage units like commandos extremely good on this map, because you'll just be able to camouflage your way anywhere on the map with ease. Just an insane amount of light cover on this map. So I imagine camouflage units are going to be very, very good on Tuscan Vineyards. Now for the new 2v2 map called Alamein. Starting out with the resources, got a low fuel and a medium fuel right next to the base on each side, as well as a low fuel on the edge on each side, and 1 medium fuel in the middle. So a total of 50 fuel on this map, which is on the high side. And on top of that, because this fuel is right next to the base, you'll be able to run out, cap it immediately. Very hard for the enemy to harass. Imagine like the early tech units will come on like quite fast on this map because of this safe fuel right next to the base. But when it comes to munitions, that's a different story. Got a medium munitions on each side, 2 of them, so it's 40 total. And then 1 medium in the middle, 1 high in the middle. So a total of 66 munitions only on this map, which I think is the lowest of any map in the CO3 map pool. On top of that, because this is a high in the middle and it takes so long to capture high points, I could imagine this being neutral for large portions of the game. So very, very low munitions map is Alamein. In terms of strategic points, got 4 of them. Might offer some like light cutoff play on these low fuels. Over here, maybe it's a little bit more interesting, because to connect to this fuel here, you can't do it straight from this point like you might initially guess. There's actually like a gap caused by these trenches here. So these cutoffs will actually impact you being able to connect the medium fuel on this side of the map. These cutoffs in the corner. Now having a look around Alamein. First off, starting in the bases, you can see the bases are quite close to each other on this map, so it makes it very easy to share healing, which I think generally gives a bit of an advantage towards allies. They have easy access to share healing like this with their med tents. Then you can see there are these trenches here. They were kind of acting as like mild cutoffs. They're not counted as being in territory. You might think you might be able to like squeeze through them, but it doesn't look like your infantry wants to traverse these at all, and a couple of them are dead ends anyway. But yeah, you can't come through these trenches at all. So we'll just have a general look around the map. Notice that there's quite a lot of like cloud cover. The clouds moving quite quickly. We'll move away from an area of smoke. So it can kind of change the colors. Like sometimes it looks kind of bright, and then sometimes it looks quite dark and the clouds are moving rapidly. So it's kind of an interesting effect. So overall, quite open in a lot of these areas, and spots like this will become more open as the game progresses, and tanks come in and crush these walls, open up sightlines. So there's kind of an interesting building over here as well. I don't think I've encountered these buildings on any maps before. You might initially think that you'll be able to jump in. That kind of looks like a door over there, but you can't actually. The door is on this side or on this side, and then there's one in the middle on each side as well. So you kind of jump in on that side, jump out, kind of cycle your way through while undercover here. So it's kind of an interesting feature on this map. On top of that, I don't think I've seen this building on any map either. You got a door here, no door on the other side. It's a bit of a strange building. When you give an order to get inside of it, seems like as soon as you're kind of in the archway, you're kind of counted as being inside the building. So that's kind of whole archway is a door. Despite of if we zoom in, like, I don't know, it's a bit of a funky building either way. But yeah, this does actually function as a door, this one here. Jump in over there as well. So the archers act as a door, and the lone door acts as a door. But yeah, got some big train carriages here, acting as blockers. Looks like your infantry can squeeze through them though. Back over to this side. Quite a few, sandbags up. Overall, like, still quite a lot of heavy cover on this map in spite of it being so open. Here we are in the corner. Bit of a vision blocker here right on the VP area. Some symmetrical cover there. So let's look at Alamein. Another new 2v2 map has been added in this patch, and this one is called Lorraine. Starting out looking at the resources, on each side there are 4 low fuels and 1 medium fuel in the middle. So a total of 50 fuel available in this map, and I imagine this medium fuel in the middle will be hotly contested in the early game because of that. When it comes to munitions, so it's a little bit more unusual. Got a safe medium munitions on each side. And apart from that, there are 3 medium munitions in the middle, 2 high munitions on the edge. So a total of 82 munitions on this map. So quite a high resource map overall, but quite a lot of fighting to happen over those higher resource points in the middle. Not a lot of safe resources right next to your base. When it comes to strategic points, only 1 on each side. And they don't really offer much in the way of cutoff potential, but maybe could be like a decent option for a forward base. If you're playing like air and sea, you could chuck down your mid tent on this. Be in a pretty relevant position for most of the game, but also quite well defended. This one's maybe not quite as well defended, so yeah, maybe the edge to this side. Now let's have a look around Lorraine. Starting out in the bases, you can see you can share healing on this map pretty easily. One of the defining characteristics of this map is the elevation. See, we're starting out quite high on the left-hand side, left-hand spawn, and sinking down as we go to the right-hand spawn. So there's quite a lot of elevation changes on this half of the map, which does make me worry, like, balance-wise. There is the elevation bonus. You get accuracy bonus by being 3.5 range or higher above your opponent. And I'd say like 9 times out of 10, the left-hand spawn's going to have the elevation bonus compared to the right-hand spawn. There are maybe some spots where the right-hand spawn could gain some elevation bonuses, but not really. So it does make me a little bit worried when it comes to balance of this map. But let's just have a look around it in general. Got a nice little garden area through here. You will notice there are quite a lot of buildings on this map, but quite a lot of them you can't get into actually. So that will take some getting familiar with, like what are actual buildings that you can garrison and what have been like boarded off so you can't enter into, and that's just kind of like blockers. But there are quite a few like impassable tracts like this. making it harder for your tanks and infantry to move around. But yeah, overall, in spite of there being a lot of buildings you can't get into, there are also a huge number of buildings you can get into. So you're going to need to bring your flamethrowers, grenade launchers, mortars, or breach got buffed this patch. So good map to try out a bunch of breaching squads. But yeah, you see a lot of buildings that you can't get into. So it's not all just crazy garrisons all the way, but still a lot of garrisons on this map. So yeah, there are a few things to be worried about. The elevation, the garrisons. I imagine this could probably be one of those maps where a lot of the high-ranked players end up vetoing it after a short time. Now looking at the new 3v3 map that's called Gabès Gap. And the first thing you may notice is this resource point up here. Instead of having just 2 triangles above it, it's got 3. And it's not called a high fuel point, it's called a huge fuel point. That's because down the bottom of the map, there's actually a plus 12 fuel. So not plus 10 like a normal medium fuel, but plus 12. And that's called a large fuel point. And this one, instead of being called a low fuel, it's called a tiny fuel. So there's been a bit of tomfoolery with the resource numbers on this map. So they've kind of adjusted their names and adjusted their iconography. I think that people probably would have been fine just having this still as medium and this is high. I don't think they need to change it that much, or maybe they had to just to make the numbers work in the game stats or something like that. But the net impact of that means that there's actually 33 fuel available on each side of the map. So a total of 66 fuel available on this map, which is crazy high. The next highest is plus 50 available on the total map. So this is by far and away the highest fuel map in the map pool. But one thing you'll notice about that fuel is it's not directly connected to your base. There's no like safe fuel. Even this fuel, which is quite close to your base, has a cutoff like quite close to the middle of the map. So I can imagine this being decapped quite a lot. Similar story in here, like these are quite close to the middle of the map, so they'll be hotly fought over. So very high fuel map, but also very hotly contested fuel. I could definitely imagine like getting off to a strong start in this game being crucial on this map because yeah, you'll take control of the fuel, you get a massive edge over your opponents, you'll start spitting out your vehicles much earlier than them. So I could definitely imagine this being a bit of a steamrolling map based on this fuel setup. Having a look at the munitions points, we've got a medium munitions on each side here, one here safe close to the base, 2 lows here safe close to the base, so it's 30 on each side. But then in the middle, we've got 2 mediums and a high in the corner, so 96 munitions. Also, I think the highest munitions of any map in the game. But again, you can see that they are quite likely to be harassed, at least like this point here, also part of this cutoff scheme, could be cut off quite a lot. These points are in the middle, and there's actually like a bit of a gully in the middle, bit of a depression. So capping these points is going to be quite treacherous because on each side, probably going to be shot at with the elevation bonus. So I can imagine these being quite painful to capture. And then this one right here in the corner, quite far away, you can see there is quite a lot of like cut-off potential, a lot of like neutral points, points that don't count as territory, acting and synergizing together to form cut-offs. So yeah, a lot of resources overall on this map, but a lot of cut-off potential as well. We have 4 strategic points on this map, so a pretty standard amount, and they're definitely serving the purpose of trying to be used as cut-offs. So I think Gabès Gap has the most unique resource layout of any map in the CO3 pool, but I could definitely imagine that having some drawbacks, maybe getting off to a strong start. You might be able to steamroll your opponent because they won't have access to fuel. Now having a look around Gabès Gap, you can see the bases are spaced maybe a tiny bit too far apart to be able to easily share healing. Now you could share it, but you're probably going to have to move your squads a little bit towards the middle. Can't just set it and forget it. So something to be aware of. Going to start on the left-hand side, close to left-hand base. So around this high fuel, quite a lot of garrisons. I thought that maybe there would be enough elevation difference here that these Tommies down the bottom, we have the elevation disadvantage, but that's not the case. Not quite enough of an elevation difference, but certainly if you jump into these buildings, you're going to have the elevation bonus above a squad in this gully. So coming on to the top side of the map, there's not a lot of resources up here, bit of a open hilltop. So quite open up the top here. You're probably going to want to bring some light vehicles to fight on the top side of the map if you're playing on the top spawn. And back through. Now, having a look at these two cutoffs. Going to be very, very important in this game. See, on this side, there are two buildings on this cutoff that maybe the enemy could run along here and jump into, make it very annoying for you to reclaim your cutoff, but only one on the other side. So I think this does give an advantage to the left-hand spawn. And again, if you're trying to play on this top side, you're going to need to have this anti-garrison because somebody running down into your cutoff, decapping it, then jumping into this building is going to be very annoying if you don't have an answer. So I think like a Panzer Pio inside, Flamer inside a 250 is going to be a really good solution. Going to make DAC quite strong on the top spawn of this map. But I think again a bit of a disadvantage to the right-hand side with the two buildings versus one there. And yeah, there's a lot of big, deep, would you call this a ravine? I don't know. Through the middle. And you can see that if you're down the bottom here, the enemy will have the elevation bonus on you. So this is very dangerous to be down in the middle of this map because on either side you're going to be getting shot up like crazy. So try and make a quick exit through here or maybe make use of smoke and stuff. Because otherwise you are going to be getting torched if you're in the middle of the map. Very close to the base, quite open. Still quite a few like heavy cover positions available though. These big kind of fortified concrete areas overlooking the beach. Again, elevation gradient. This one's a little bit more gentle, but I imagine there'd still be some areas where you can get the elevation bonus fighting over here. Coming out into the sea, that's where the high munitions point is. Got the VP down the bottom here. I could imagine maybe this side being able to shoot down here. I actually haven't checked that. Yep. Be pretty symmetrical overall. So much more even compared to what we saw just before. The final new map in patch 2.1, the return of a classic, it's Redball Express for 4v4. So having a look at the resources, we've got 2 low fuels pretty safely connected to the base, and then 2 mediums in the middle. So 40 fuel overall, a little bit on the low side, and mediums are right in the middle, so they're going to be hotly contested. So a little bit on the low side in terms of fuel this map. And having a look at the munitions, we've got 2 mediums and 1 low on each side, and then 2 highs in the middle. So a total of 82 munitions on this map. Pretty standard amount of munitions. Then when it comes to strategic points, we've got 3 on each side. Pretty high amount, and that'll open up a lot of cutoff opportunities. I will say that looking at the layout from this spawn, it's a little bit different. You can connect low munitions, medium munitions, and you're connected to the fuel, but on the other side you can't do the same. So maybe that gives a bit of an edge to the top side in terms of the access to this fuel, but then over here you have easy access to the munitions point. Whereas the side connecting there, you don't connect to munitions, but I think generally I would prefer to connect to fuel than munitions. So that probably gives an edge to the right hand spawn. And I think one difference compared to at least the COH2 version is COH2 I felt like, you know, the bases were kind of planted evenly along the middle, but in the COH3 version, now they kind of moved towards the edges, so maybe that will inform which lane you come down a bit more, as opposed to being a bit more free-flowing. This kind of maybe encourages more players from this spawn to come down this side rather than all the way across, so that might kind of tailor each side onto certain edges of the map. But having a look at the map itself, very familiar. I didn't play COH1, so I can't really speak to that, but you know, very, very close to the COH2 layout. Maybe a little bit like browner overall in the COH3 version. Maybe more of a, like an autumn setting. Not as green, and maybe a bit duller. We're kind of like in the late afternoon kind of lighting, it looks like. So not as bright. But yeah, we do have those characteristic big lane dividers down the middle of the map, which can make it hard to rotate around, especially in the early game, before like heavy tanks come out and crush some of this stuff and open up the map a bit more. So you can make rotating to assist your teammates. Very difficult, especially if you're trying to move team weapons around, stuff like that. But yeah, not a lot of garrisons on this map. Overall, yeah, a few here and there. And of course, there's the big manor overlooking this VP over the side. Signature Redball. But yeah, very, very familiar for me as a Co-2 player at least. Got these big blockers on either side of that central VP. Lumberyard in the middle. Let's look at Redball. There were also a few map changes in this patch. I'm just going to mention the one I thought was most important to Twin Beaches. So you can see the fuel point next to your base is still +10, but the one in the middle and the one out on the edges are all +8. See, these are called low fuel points, whereas this is called medium, but they actually all share the same icon. So maybe that's a little bit confusing. But yeah, overall, less fuel on this map, 6 fuel less. So we went from 50 fuel map down to 44. And if you get off to a bit of a rough start, have bad control over these middle fuels, or maybe you get cut off, it will be less important because there's less fuel in the middle of Twin Beaches now. Relic have also added a new skin pack for every faction into this patch. So for the Brits, we've got the Desert Rose, got this pink color scheme, historically based apparently. For the US forces, we've got Amphibious Assault. Kind of hard to see its color scheme from the pictures actually. You can see they've kind of got the shadows casting forwards onto the front of the vehicles. Makes it hard to see, they're so dark. Kind of need to take the screenshots from the other side, I think, to show those off a bit better. You can see them a little bit better from more zoomed out. War Torn for Wehrmacht. This is supposed to be like late game or like end of the war scraps of the Wehrmacht army, what they still have together. Apparently this one's got like a bunch of unique like baubles kind of that sit on the vehicles and stuff. So that one's kind of interesting. And then down the bottom here we've got the Desert Cats for DAC. Sand Blasted cosmetic, kind of black and orange. It looks pretty cool. You'll also notice that all of these are available for purchase for merit, unlike some of the other skin packs which you had to buy with real money. War bonds, you buy war bonds with money, then you buy the skin packs with that. But all of these new skin packs you can unlock with merit, so you could eventually grind them out by doing challenges. And these skin packs, I think a lot of them used to cost 40k, now they're down to 30k, these big ultimate packs. So more achievable to unlock these skin packs, which is nice. On top of that, while we're looking at this, Relic also said they'll be adding the Night Fighters, which you could get by unlocking through Prime Gaming on Twitch over the course of many months. And Relic said they'll be slowly adding these to the store over the coming months. So if you really want some of these Night Fighters, now's your chance. You'll be able to get those coming up soon. While they're looking at this though, I would like them to remove some of the ridiculous Night Fighter scopes from these Night Fighter skins. That would be a nice little touch up while they're on the top of skins. Thank you to all of my Patreon backers. And if you appreciate these videos, I hope you consider joining up.